Hey all, this is Paul from Drums and Rums, where the backbeats meets the spirits. I'm sure you're wondering, well, we haven't heard from you in a while on Drums and Rums, but we see these other shows popping up. So I just kind of wanted to go ahead and give a little update on what's going on the podcast here on the audio channel here. So thank you first off for listening to this audio episodes, whether it's on Apple, Spotify, Pandora, etc. Thank you. As most of you know, we're in our 5th year of doing the podcast. We started out in 2020, and it's been a great journey. And some of the things I've always wanted to do was expand the show, expand the content, continue growing. And one of the things was I've always had this concept idea to want to have or be part of a podcast network. So figuring, well, let me go ahead and maybe start my own podcast network. Some of those other podcast networks that are out there, a lot of them they do the same co-hosts or hosts or a combination of the two. And they have different shows, different dates, different content style. Maybe it's a sports show with the same people, then it's a politics show. So very similarly, as you've seen probably most recently is on the Drums and Rums audio channel here that you're listening to is a show called Riffs and Rhythms. And that show is with my co-host, Kevin McLoughlin. So it's a different style show, obviously, than the Drums and Rums. Drums and Rums, as most of you know, is a traditional podcast interview style show, whereas the Riffs and Rhythms show is more of a hang chat show with local musicians. We have a good time. It's what I always describe it as. If you're not a musician, this is what it this is what it would be like if after at the end of band practice, band rehearsal, where you're hanging out with your bandmates. You're having a good time. You're, maybe giving each other a hard time, talking shit, maybe having a few drinks maybe, and, talking music. And it's just about the camaraderie and, of fellow musicians and hanging out together and being each other's presence and, making great music. So that's kind of the concept of that show. We've got a lot of great guests coming up, especially we have our music festival coming up in November, Riffs and Rhythms Fest. So definitely if you're local here in Florida, South Florida, come check it out with more information on the Riffs and Rhythms website, how to get tickets, be a vendor, etc. But really what I wanted to get to was also, you probably also noticed that we have a second or third show now that's showing up on the stream. I know maybe end of last year you saw My Rum Diaries. My friend Nia, who runs My Rum Diaries, has a show, does reviews, so definitely check her out. But we now have added a third show. And again, if you've probably listened to any of the stuff that I've done, this name may not be that unfamiliar to you, but Brad Brock. Brad is the host of the Jams and Cocktails show. It's a live stream show every Wednesday night on YouTube. So definitely check it out. So it's something if you want to unwind for the evening, hang out, some of the antics and silliness. It's like a morning talk show, but at nighttime, maybe a little edgy and with drinks. So definitely check it out. So Brad's show, Jams and Cocktails, has joined the podcast stream here on the Drums and Rums audio channel. But one of the things that we kind of started to think about was how do we kind of evolve and grow? And Drums and Rums is kind of been the foundation for all this after, nearly 5 years. And one of the things we thought about was how do we kind of make it seem like it covers broader perspective? So with that being said, we decided that we wanted to keep the Drums and Rums show, which you're listening to now, its own show, like with great drummer guests and rum guests, etc. And be a little bit more broader in the name of the podcast channel. So it's going to be the same RSS feed, the same. You don't have to change anything. You don't have to do anything. But what you will notice is the logo for the podcast on your app that you're listening to is going to change. And the reason why it's going to change is because we're going to rebrand the audio podcast to B3 Podcast Network. Why B3? B3 stands for Brands, Bands, and Booze. So I think, again, if you listen to the any of these podcasts that we've done, you probably have seen now the connection between, we've got musicians, so there's the bands. We talk to different rum companies or different spirits companies or different companies in general. So there's the brands. And then, of course, sometimes we have some booze, right? So it's kind of bringing those three things together. I've probably talked about them many times. And where the harmonious cycle of music, live venues, and obviously some spirits, if you're into that. But those three things are very connected to each other. Not saying it has to be, but for the most part, right? So that's why we've gone ahead and changed the name, the podcast network and the stream to B3 Podcast Network. So you'll see a different logo soon. So I just want to kind of give everybody a little heads up, little prep. And then the name's going to change as well from Drums and Rums Podcast to B3 Podcast Network, and then so on and so forth. Drums and Rums will still be part of the stream. That'll be dropping. I think we're going to change our date maybe on our drop dates. Riffs and Rhythms are going to be on Tuesdays, and Jams and Cocktails are going to be on Thursdays after they do their live stream. So if you want to watch the show, you can go to Wednesday night and then hear the replay on Thursday. So again, I just want to kind of get out there and say, hey, some things are changing. I'm still here, still doing some stuff. Hang with me, trying to grow. I still do a lot of these things by myself, so very appreciate everyone who's been listening to us since the beginning, way back in 2020. Oh, geez, not that far back, but back in 2020, pre-COVID, just a few weeks before COVID lockdown happened. I've had a lot of great guests over the years. We've had a lot of great guests already in Drums and Rums, just this year alone. Tito Puente, Rich Redmond, a lot of great rum guests. So really looking forward to where we can take this as a whole. Do a lot of collaboration across our shows, do a lot of promotion across our podcast. I go on Brad's show. Sometimes he comes on my show, and then Kevin's, also the co-host. So we're all good friends outside of here. We, really hang out with each other. We enjoy each other's company. We support each other, and this is what it's all about. Us all supporting each other. That's like Riffs and Rhythms, supporting Florida original music. So again, that's what it's all about. I just wanted to kind of jump on here, give a little quick update about the podcast network, some changes you're going to see, and so forth. YouTube channel is going to still stay the same. It'll still be Drums and Rums. Riffs and Rims is going to still have its own YouTube channel. Jams and Cocktail has its own channel, but this is just on the audio format. So hopefully it allows us to grow. Hopefully it allows us to attract some sponsors and advertisers to offer more content on a network. And that's kind of the premise of what this update here on this episode that I've dropped here for you today to go ahead and cover. So again, I appreciate everyone's time listening to the show, watching the show, supporting the show in any fashion. So hopefully you'll check out more, support our new show, and also we look to continue to add more shows as well that fit this same niche or genre that we're trying to aim for there in the entertainment space and live venues, live performances. So again, appreciate it. Hang tight. Don't don't get kind of freaked out when you see a different logo showing up in your app that you've already subscribed. And again, thank you for subscribing. But hang with us. If you ever want to let us know, you get a feedback, you can always contact us over on social media, hit me a message. Or I think here in the description of these podcasts, there's actually a send a text button as well, too, if you ever want to kind of reach me and give me feedback. Don't forget to rate the podcast, too. That's a big deal. So give us some 5 stars or however you feel. Leave us a little feedback on Apple Podcast because that really helps a lot with advertisers. They see the show's got some traction, people are listening to it. So again, hope you all have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. This is Paul with the Backbeats Meets the Spirits.